what we're kind of just thinking about today is talking over kind of some of the current issues that we really see, and this is really more specific to US and Canadian soccer than international athletes. And I think the big issue that we see, especially in the US right now, but also across the world in Canada, is that the top 2% of players get recruited, the rest have to recruit themselves. Now, whether you're at the biggest club in Atlanta or the smallest club in Missouri, the top 2% of players just get recruited. The soccer industry is probably smaller than it looks in that regard, but majority of players that we work with, and obviously you players out there, are in the 98%. So then you are having to try and navigate the recruitment cycle yourself. And how would you do that? And obviously in some of my other videos, I'm sure you've seen obviously the issues we've been talking about that recruitment, in how the recruitment process has been the same for 15 years, no one's standing out over anyone else. So how do you navigate a recruitment cycle when you're trying to get it recruited yourself and it's becoming harder every year? And I think the follow on from that is that one of the big problems is America is a country the size of a continent. So it's not like where I'm from in the UK, we can drive across the country in 5.5 hours. You can barely get across most states here doing that. So it's really about, if you're in California and you want to do something different and go to New York, or how about spending hours of your time, days of your time probably, thousands of dollars, are you ever going to get seen by a coach in New York without having to travel there, go to ID camps, go meet with coaches and all these different factors? So it's really, really hard to navigate. So how do you navigate the actual size of America to not limit yourself to just what we call your college soccer bubble, which is maybe 2-3 hours from home, which not everyone wants to do that. And that really limits the options you're going to have to play college soccer as well. The other big one is standing out from the rest. So you might be a centre midfielder, a striker. Well, there's over 1,000 players in your position doing the exact same thing as you. Going to ID camps, emailing coaches, showcases, and all these different factors that we've talked about in some of our other videos. So how do you stand out from everyone? Because it's really, really tough if you're a very similar player, similar academics. Well, if he speaks to that player before you, maybe that, okay, my loyalty lies with that player, but maybe you actually might have been a better fit. You just didn't stand out from him at the beginning. And it can come really down to more luck than judgment, which is he might just be at the right tournament at the right time, where that coach was at the right date, and you might have just been unlucky and been sick and not been there, or your team didn't enter that tournament. So maybe it can be more luck than judgment to stand out from the rest. So it's really making sure that when you're going through recruitment, you're putting a lot of emphasis on why you're doing certain things and how you believe that's going to help you stand out. The next one is a lot of internationals coming in. So this is not like American football, basketball, baseball, lacrosse, where Americans are the best in that sport, and that's the majority of the college soccer players. Soccer is the biggest, most popular sport in the world for a reason. So you've got a lot of internationals coming in. Now, it used to be the case that people used to say, oh, well, internationals are just better than me. Well, that was the case probably 15 or so years ago. That's definitely not the case anymore. I travel back and forth to the US, to the UK, to Canada a lot, and there really is no difference anymore at the youth level. So I watch under 17s in Premier League academies to MLS Next academies and lower down and lower down. There is no massive difference. The big thing is actually some college coaches find it actually easier to recruit internationals than domestic players, because to recruit an international, all they have to do is sit on their desk like this, on their laptop, speak to me, and I'll send over full games, highlights, tape, grades, etc., etc. They can have video calls, do virtual tours, and they can recruit a player literally from their desk. Whereas to recruit a domestic player, they have to go through thousands of emails, which they just don't have time to do. Or they have to go on to NCSA or sports recruit portals, which is a lot of fluff, and a lot of them don't do that. They have to go to this showcase, that showcase, host ID camps. It becomes hard for college coaches to do that, and some coaches don't have the budgets to travel, depending on what their school budget is for that given year. So it actually becomes easier, and it's sometimes internationals are even getting more exposure than domestic players, because the domestic players are getting stuck in the traditional recruitment cycle, whereas internationals happen to use someone like Primus to actually go direct to the coaches and be marketed to the right coaches at the right time. I also think there's not enough opportunities outside of the US. So there's so many international players coming in, as I just said, and traditionally American players didn't have the opportunity or didn't know about opportunities to go outside of America. Now there are loads of opportunities. We've got American athletes that are playing in Canada. We've got Canadian athletes that are playing in America, in the UK. We've got an American girl that we work with just flew out to Australia and New Zealand last week. So there are opportunities all around the world now where you can use soccer as a tool to travel, have an experience, get your degree, try and make it in soccer if that's your goal, which is something that may not have been there in the past, but it now is there. ID camps. I know I touched on them a second ago. I think when it comes to ID camps, listen, some coaches do a great job and they put on good ID camps, but it's very few and far between. A lot of them are fundraisers for the college. Like the amount of players that got recruited last year from ID camps was less than 5%, probably around 2-3%. And a lot of coaches are hosting ID camps. Maybe they're only recruiting one position, but you happen to bring a load of people from different positions, paying $200-$400, and they're not actually even recruiting your position, or maybe they're not recruiting from ID camps at all, and they've already got their targets elsewhere. So ID camps, they can have benefits to network with coaches, network with people, to improve as a player under good coaching. But if you're going there specifically to get recruited, you're probably going to be disappointed. And then the big thing is emailing coaches just doesn't work. It just does not work as well as it used to, because coaches get too many emails. Like, we work with coaches that are less than 1,000 students in the entire school, and they're getting over 1,000 emails from potential recruits. Imagine how many emails a school with 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 are getting. They can't go through all of that. Now, there are some that do, and I don't know how they do it, and hats off to them. But again, in the grand scheme of things, a lot of coaches can't go through and don't have the time to go through all of those as well. So for any of you out there that want to email coaches, now as a transfer, it can definitely work if you put transfer student in your subject line, because they will look at you more because they know what they're going to get from you, because they can speak to your college coach and you're in college soccer already. But if you out there are a freshman and you're trying to email coaches, the way to get them to do it is you're going to have to call them. And I know that sounds scary, but call the coach, let them know your name, position, you just sent them a tape and an email to look at, then they might look at it. They might like you after that, they might not, but at least you're getting your answer from that school. So, I mean, there's some of the issues we talk about all the time. I mean, jumping across to you, I know you're working with the kids directly themselves. What are kind of some of the main issues you see actually with the players themselves?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few that I can think of. One of the big ones is kids especially kind of limiting themselves right off the bat, location-wise, where they want to stay inside their 2 to 3 hour soccer bubble, and sometimes the opportunities there are pretty limited, and so they kind of limit themselves to those schools. And who knows if they're recruiting for that position, if the coach is interested in them. It really kind of comes down to luck rather than judgment at that point. Another one, the recruitment process is difficult on people. Like it requires a lot of work, time, effort, and kids are getting lazy nowadays. Something that we definitely see, where if you're not putting in time and effort to calling these coaches, sending those emails, investigating, looking at the roster on the website, seeing if they have seniors in your position that are graduating, all that kind of research that needs to be done to see if a potential school would even be possible for you. Kids aren't really putting in that effort, so that right away just kind of limits them location-wise and on the schools that could potentially recruit their position. Another one, obviously, that you just mentioned, just not standing out from the rest. I mean, as you said, thousands of other kids in the same position, doing the same exact thing at the same time, expecting the same result. But I mean, it's not very likely when you got 1,000 other kids doing it. So finding a way to stand out from the rest and have a different recruitment process is something that would obviously ensure that you have a better process for yourself. And then kind of in that same realm, expecting the offers to come to them. That just doesn't happen. You have to put that effort in, or find a way to stand out from the rest, which, as we'll talk about, is something that you'll need to do to get recruited. And kind of going into that, do you have some thoughts on like what parents, some issues that parents experience through the recruitment process?
I think just jumping into what you were saying there, I think sometimes parents are scared to let their children go. So again, it can be them maybe putting pressure on their child in these different areas that you touched on, where I don't want you to go too far away from home. Well, now you're limiting yourself to 3 hours. We had it this year with one of our athletes, didn't we? Where, listen, we only put offers on the table that ticked the box, so it still ticked their boxes. There was one that I think was absolutely perfect, just too far away from home. And I think that probably comes from parents and child in that regard. I think similar as well to just do it, like some parents get maybe involved and get overly involved, and they're pushing them into, you have to go Division 1, because they don't understand the soccer landscape, where Division 1 doesn't mean it's the best, like in American football. and they're pushing them, got to be Division 1 because they want to say to their parent friends, oh, my child is going to this big school, and they'd rather say they're going to this big school without soccer. So like, well, listen, get into that school, try out for soccer. If not, then you're going to go to that school anyway. And sometimes the parents are paying for it. I understand, obviously, they want their child to get a great education, but I mean, for the parents out there, as an employer, and obviously we did a bit of a survey of this a couple of years ago as well, employers will probably prefer still a decent school, but in a team sport, than just going to a good school. Because if you're in a team sport, you learn all these different skills and facets and cool things that you can bring to a environment and work. Unless you're going to go out and be a kind of solo practitioner in whatever you do, like you're going to be in a team in a job. So I think that's a big thing as well. I think the lack of knowledge, and that's not parents' fault. Like, our full-time job is to do it. Parents have full-time jobs, and then trying to help their son or daughter get recruited is a full-time job. So they just don't know what they don't know. And sometimes they assume they know things, and that can put in certain issues as well. Or they just don't know and they aren't sure in direction to go, which is why when families work with us, one family that always comes to mind is the Lawless family from Louisiana, where Abram's mum literally said to me, she's like, this was a full-time job for me, Tom. And like, she was running around, spending thousands on ID camps. And then within a month of working to us, she's like, I feel like I can breathe again. Yeah. And he had 4 offers in a month of working with us. Mm-hmm. Now we're working with his younger brother, Brunt, so we'll help. She's like, yeah, you did it for my first son, you got to do it for the second son. Yeah. And that's a good thing from a parent's perspective and we're going to touch on it. I think you mentioned something you want to touch on in a second. I guess we can go into it, is investing money wisely. Yeah. I think is an important thing.
I mean, you can, as you said, go around spending thousands traveling, ID camps, and you could literally get nothing out of it. You could get, playing experience, sure, some coaching from college coaches, which is great, but you're not getting generally interest from those ID camps because they're not exactly recruitment tools as they used to be. So if you're pouring thousands of dollars into that avenue and you see 0 results, you get pretty down on that. You spend all that time, money, and there's nothing to really show for it, and you're like, oh, well, I'm not good enough. But it's just simply not the case. It's just that you're not standing out and you're kind of falling for the recruitment trap.
Yeah,
that seems to keep recurring.
For families out there is always going to be some sort of cost for recruitment.
Yeah,
like it's invest your money wisely. Yeah. Like it's like I said, the family, unfortunately, they spent both, but they spent thousands of dollars trying to get recruited. They worked with us. Yes, there is obviously a cost, but they had 4 offers that ticked all the boxes, and he knew now he was getting to play college soccer 100%. We're lucky enough at Primus to have a 100% offer rate, and if you're going to invest your money, it doesn't have to be on us, but invest it smartly. If you're going to go to ID camps, make sure you've called the coach. Yeah. Make sure you know they're looking for your position, that they're open to looking at someone. If they look at your tape, hopefully they're honest with you and they're like, no, you're not someone that I bring in here. If you are, okay, that might be worth the investment then. You might not get recruited, but at least you know there was a worthwhile going, rather than just going willy-nilly. You spoke to a family when we were at ECNL Vegas, and how much had they traveled in?
They went to 3 ECNL events in January. So like Florida, Iowa, and Vegas, all in January.
Each one alone with flights, hotels, and travel and whatnot is over $1,000. That's like $6,000 in a month.
Yeah.
Trying to get recruited, and they had nothing, right?
They didn't speak to any coaches.
That's.
That kind of ties into the whole concept of each league promoting themselves as the best way to get recruited. Yeah. It kind of, you got MLS Next, ECNL, National League,
USL,
the whole alphabet soup of them, and they're all saying that this is the best league. We have the best talent. This is the best way to get recruited. And then you go to these events, and they're all exactly the same. There's less and less college coaches going to them
because there's more of them.
Yeah, there's more of them. It's just diluting the whole product, and then everyone's still die hard. Oh, ECNL is the best, MLS Next is the best, but it's really just hurting the recruits in the end.
Yeah,
because they don't have the stability or the exposure that they're supposed to be getting. But and then that kind of ties into the college coaches too, where they have to decide which event they're going to.
Yeah, I think some of them are probably biased to some too, right? If they had a kid that played in ECNL and liked it, or something, they're like, okay, I think ECNL is better. They might be biased to one, so they're not seeing any players at MLS Next. I think ECNL as well is like it's quite expensive, so some families can't afford it, or they don't live in the area. Like I've one family that are like, yeah, we pay for this team, which is a National League team, because they don't want to drive 2 hours to practice every day.
Yeah.
So, but then coaches aren't going to National League teams because they might think, oh, it's a lower level than ECNL. In reality, there's a lot of great players.
Yeah.
They just, one, don't have the time to travel all year, or the money, or don't live in the right area. It's still a fantastic level of player.
Yeah.
But that's the problem, is everyone's promoting themselves as the best, when in reality there isn't one that's better than the other.
No.
I mean, if you go to like maybe ECNL, like the best teams that won it, or the best teams that won the MLS Next to final tournament sort of thing. But that's the same with National League. It's the same across the board. So the offensive it's so fragmented. Like in England and Europe, and you have the tiered system. You know, if you're playing for a Premier League academy, that's better than a Championship academy. Like there might be players that are better below here and there, but in the grand scheme of things, you know what you're getting. Yeah. Whereas here, it's like, I mean, I remember it took me years of my American teammates in college like trying to explain to me. I'm like, what does any of this mean? Like even in like New York, you've got travel teams. Yeah. Like that's not a thing here in the South, or at least not the same wording. It's like, again, it's kind of different everywhere. There needs to be like one kind of certain structure, which I don't think we're going to get. No. But it's making sure families know, if you love what you're playing at your National League team or your USL academy, you don't have to pay loads more money and travel further to go to the ECNL team just to get recruited in college. Yeah, absolutely. We have plenty of athletes that we work with that didn't play for ECNL, and they got the same amount of offers as our ECNL players got. Yeah, I think as well. So, and that kind of goes alongside. Obviously, I work with the college coaches every day. Is with the college coaches, like traveling to these events, it depends on their budget, because there are some coaches that get given a great budget and they can travel, but especially if you out there are a lower level player, maybe let's say you're still a developing player, and maybe the right school for you is a smaller school for you to go in and develop. Those smaller schools aren't given budget to travel, so they're just relying on working with us and relying with local players. So that could be the perfect school for you that does your degree, that has the kind of culture you're looking for. Maybe it's religiously, socially, whatever it is. But how could they ever find out about you? Yeah. Because they don't have the budget, because they're in Alabama and you're in, I don't know, the other side of Louisiana. They don't even have the budget to travel that far. Mm-hmm. So it can be really hard for, especially those smaller schools, to find players that suit them, because they don't know where to go or don't have the budget to go there as well. And that kind of takes us on the topic as well of youth clubs. And obviously you're right in it. You are a youth coach yourself, and chat to them every day. So it'd be good to hear your perspective on kind of the current issues on that side.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big issues with youth clubs is kind of tying back in the alphabet soup thing, where players will leave a club because they don't have the elite platform to go to a club with ECNL or MLS Next, and that ends up hurting the reputation of the original club, while then also reinforcing the fact that you only can get recruited by an ECNL if you're playing ECNL or MLS Next, which is just not true. So for those clubs that aren't like don't have the elite platform that they say is elite, it hurts them, it hurts the teams that they're able to have, which is unfortunate, because we know that you don't have to play those leagues to get recruited. And so with those clubs, you're seeing, I mean, I speak to the directors all the time, it's a big problem, like bigger clubs poaching smaller clubs' best players. And I mean, that's a big issue that a lot of people are experiencing, and that contributes to, I mean, I'm sure the burnout, the drop off of players quitting after high school, because they're going through like almost like professional transfer saga every season, because they're getting poached by the next team that has like the elite platform. And so those clubs, like, they may see that as like, oh, well, this is just how it's going to be, like, our players are going to get poached. But the reality is they just have to change the way they see recruitment, try and add more support for their players, so that they know that they can still stay at this club and get recruited, because that's all it is. It's just they act like the exposure is so elite at the elite platforms, but it really isn't. There's really no difference.
Yeah, I think that's what I think when it comes to people ask us, like, what's a good club versus a bad club? Yeah. And to me, a good club is something that's open to helping their players in any way they can. Yeah. Like, there are clubs we speak to that because what we're doing is kind of a new concept. We're partnering with clubs and helping the players, giving education and whatnot. some clubs are like, yeah, love the idea, let's have a chat about it. They're like, yeah, listen, I don't see, we're already helping our players in this way, but I don't see why you can't come and add an additional thing to it. But there's other clubs that like get offended that we spoke to them, like, we've got everything figured out. And then, like I said, we won't name the club, but in ECNL Vegas, you spoke to the manager, and they said, yeah, they promote this stuff. But you were asking about it because you saw they promote this stuff, and the dad knew nothing about it. And they're not willing to have a conversation because they think they've got it all figured out and they're the best at what they do. But in reality, they're not asking the families.
No.
So that to me is like when people ask me what's a good versus a bad club. A good club is a club that gives you as many opportunities as possible to develop and get to the next step and are open to partnerships and ideas.
Yeah.
Compared to a club that when we speak to them, they're like, now we've got it all figured out, but why would we need something like this? I'm like, we don't even know how we can even help the athletes as well. But I know a lot of what we talked about today is obviously the issues, but finish with positives. Like, there are a lot of great clubs out there on that topic that are really trying to take the next step and maybe work with the Primus or do other things within their club to help players get to the next level. And as the World Cup comes up and soccer continues to grow here, there needs to be more players that stay in the game of soccer to help the overall level of soccer. I think the other big positive is there's new routes now available. It's not traditional graduate high school, have to go straight into college soccer.
Yeah.
There's one of our partners, PCDA, which is a elite gap year here in America, where they just had their first MLS draft. I was chatting to Ryan over there, and he had their first draft the other day. There's gap years that we have athletes going to in the UK, in Spain. It's maybe like what one of your athletes did: play a gap year, play under 19s at an MLS Next club, and then go into it. Or there's so many different routes now. You don't have to go straight into college. And then I think the other thing is the alternative recruitment processes. Is like Primus was founded here in obviously Europe originally, but we launched here in the US and in Canada to help athletes create their own recruitment cycle. And I'm sure with Primus in this, there will be more companies like Primus in the future as well, which means more athletes will get more individualized help and get to the next level as well. So there's a lot of positives there. I think there's only going to be more soccer opportunities coming for American players with how big soccer is getting over here. I mean, I saw the other day it's now the third most watched and played sport, overtaking baseball. Nice. So, and I think it's only going to go up from there.
Yeah, I agree.